Today on the Whatsoever Thing Show, we have special guest Rick Stagg. Rick shares with us how he came to OAG, some great stories about his time working with Royal Rangers, and fart powder. It's another great show, so hang on, here we go. Well, hey there everyone. Welcome to the Whatsoever Thing Show, a podcast designed to stimulate your mind, tickle your funny bone, and encourage your faith.
Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things.
This is the Whatsoever Thing Show, recorded on September 20th, 2021. He didn't have any big boy pants.
Welcome to another episode of the Whatsoever Things podcast show, as Daniel says. Show is what he puts on.
Is it a show
computer.
or a podcast?
We'll let the people decide.
We report, you decide.
And so today we have Josh and Thomas on the hot seat. They have a former commander of the Royal Rangers here.
My seat's only lukewarm. I just, for the record.
Okay. We'll see.
It's neither hot nor cold.
We have the very infamous Mr. Rick Stagg joining us today. Hello, Mr. Rick.
How are you today? Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I really am.
As I stated before, we do not regularly meet in this room. We have a secret location.
I know.
But if we showed that secret location, we feel that you would stop by more often than not.
I probably would
No,
because
but
I
if you
love
do
to
walk
talk.
by that door and you happen to see us in here, we're not really doing what we're doing.
All right. Okay. I'll try to remember that.
No. Glad to have you here. Mr. Rick is a longtime member of Oxford Assembly of God. Previous building.
Yep.
New old schoolhouse.
Yep.
Current church building. You volunteer with the Walk.
Correct.
Or have volunteered with the Walk. You volunteer with Royal Rangers.
Right.
You do do you do any of the men's, the Omega, any of the trips? Yeah, you do
yeah, I do the Omega. I've gone on a couple mission trips and really enjoyed it. Went to Teen Challenge in Georgia.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Did you ever go to Abaco?
No, I was working first when it started, and then I just can't take the heat very well.
Okay.
So I kind of ducked out of that. But the Georgia one, particularly when we went in the fall, it really worked out great. So
His whole family's been to Abaco.
yeah, everybody but me.
He sent representatives.
Yeah, I sent representatives. Yeah, and Nick loves the fish down there too. And his free half hour he gets.
His friends like one too.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, he does.
You've raised two boys in this church. One still attends here.
Yep.
The other lives out of the area.
Right.
You have grandchildren that come here.
Right.
So the way we'd like to start off our interviews is give us some background on how you ended up at Oxford Assembly of God Church.
Go way back, Rick.
Okay, way back. We came up here on a wagon train. And we had to ford the river.
Yes.
And of course, the Seminoles were very active. We had to be careful about them. you know.
They haven't been active lately.
Hey, we have a statue that says undefeated.
That was a good one. I like that. All right. But seriously, I came up here in about 83 from South Florida. I was, and my family was what you would call a good person. I'd had some exposure when I was younger with Sunday school. One of the neighbors took me. My father was in the horse business for years, and Saturday and Sunday was our busiest day. So, the day we had off was a Monday. So I never had that much of an opportunity to get churched, let's say. And I came up here and moved out in the woods. People in downtown Oxford wanted to know why I lived way out in the woods. And our boys went to school, and Daniel, my oldest, his Sunday school teacher invited my wife and the family to come up to this church. We had just purchased the property, and to play a young adult volleyball. And it was on Friday nights. So I came up and We had a rousing game of volleyball about
young adult?
young adults.
It
That
was
was
a
what we
long
were
time
called.
ago.
It was a real long time
Was it a
ago.
leather ball? What was it?
We had a wooden ball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still got the splinters?
Yeah, still got the splinters. So about the second week going home, I said to my wife, Terry, I said, you know that guy that's leaping after the ball and rolling around on the ground and just tearing around the field? I said, that's our pastor. That's Pastor Darrell. And she said, yeah, I know. So that was my first real introduction to Oxford. And from the volleyball game, I got to know some of the different people, the Driggers in particular. That was one of the founding families. And from coming up and playing volleyball, the boys got invited to this Ranger program, which I had no idea what a Ranger was. And then somebody told me it was like the Cub Scouts. I said, okay, that would be good. So I remember the first Wednesday night I came up after work, and the two boys went into this Ranger room, and I said to my wife, I said, I want to know what the boys are doing. They're my kids. I want to know who's doing what and what they're doing. Excuse me. So I walk into the Ranger room, and here's this giant guy, Frank Franklin, who must have been 6'6", and Rocky Smelter, who was barely 5 foot, and he was big white beard, and just the first thing he said was, "Hi, brother, good to see you in here." And 20 plus years later, I was still hanging in Rangers, and we did campouts and all kinds of stuff. The first camp out that really sticks in my mind, I think that was in 87, I believe. It was a roundup, and we had somewhere along the line, they had bought 2 squad tents, and Oxford was kind of the, I don't want to say outcasts, but we were kind of the ones on the other side of the railroad track. Wildwood had the fancy church, and they had the money, and we were kind of the poor relative. So, we always had kind of a wilder group, you might say. So here we are in this camp out. The boys are pretty good, but they're boys. You got to expect they're burning off some steam. So they all get in their tent at night, and this giant uproar starts. Well, when you have 10 or 12 boys in one tent, and everybody's screaming that somebody else did something, how do you possibly sort out who did what, who's at fault, who's innocent? So we got through that, and I told Rocky, I said, we need to find or get smaller tents where we can put 2 or 3 boys in a tent, and then we start to have some control, So we had some fundraisers with car washes, and a couple people donated, and we came up with 3-man tents for everybody, and it worked out great, So that was just one of the ropes we went through. It was a very learning experience for me. I taught horseback riding and did a lot of teaching, so I used a lot of that. But we had some wild boys.
You used whips and spurs
whips
on
and,
them?
whips and spurs.
Like Cuban line.
And sometimes we'd tie them behind the truck and make them run.
Are we talking about the boys or the horses?
Yes.
He said he used those techniques. So I was asking.
Right.
If we just take you back though, were you raised in church as a kid, or is this something
No.
did you have a moment?
The only experience I had was, I remember a neighbor periodically taking me to Sunday school at their church on a Sunday when I was home. I have memories of a couple things here or there, but nothing. That's what I said. I would consider myself a good person, but I wasn't churched. My father had a real strong set of values and morals, but again, he wasn't churched. So he had a lot of issues. He was in World War II, and his issues were, if there's a God, how could you allow me to go through the things that I've seen and done? So and it took them many years to kind of get over that. You know. But anyway, that was my start, and I came up here, and I was, and I remember Miss Johnny May come up and said, "How are you, brother?" And it was like, I'm not her brother. You know, it was like a shock, you know.
Yeah.
And I kind of stepped back a minute, you know, and it took me a little while to understand and get the feeling. Now I'm one of the gang, you know. Now I'm probably the one that comes up and says that.
Yeah, scare everybody else off.
Yeah. So it's been a real journey. I've watched my boys grow up in the church. I've watched the influence that our church, which is a very, let's just say we have a heart for youth. And I've seen it for years and years and years. We have invested our time and our love and our energies into our children, our youth. And all I'll say is our children are our future. And if we don't put the time into them, we don't have a future.
And
So-
one of your sons helps out on Wednesday nights. With,
Yeah, and my
with
my
youth,
one
and
son
your-
is
and
a
his
ranger
wife and
leader.
your daughter-in-law does too. And
Right.
Yep.
So it's what's really a blessing to me is seeing it being passed down from generation to generation. And
Well, you need to get on them because we had a young adult volleyball game the other night and they didn't show up.
They didn't show
no,
up.
so we were upset.
That's right. They did.
I don't know what I'm going to do with
We
them.
still
you know?
do the young adult volleyball game.
Yeah, we just had one.
As long as they call it that, I'll keep going.
Okay, well,
I was about to ask why you were involved.
it gets to kind of be a pride thing, you know. You
Yeah.
just don't want to change, you know. Even when you get gray, you
Yes.
still hang in there, you know.
I was a young adult when I got here. Not anymore.
So, Josh or Thomas, do you have anything? I've got a whole spiel to say, but
Go
I'll let
for
you
it.
guys
let's see what
start.
you got.
Well, no, it's just so I got roped in. I mean, I got the luck. I was able to start working in Rangers, and I didn't know.
Get roped in Rangers.
I was doing it. It
Were
was
you
a.
one of those
It was a.
guys?
I
punt.
think he was drafted, but that's all right.
It was based off his horse riding background.
But the problem was he married into the Drigger
Yes,
family,
that's
and
right.
there was
That's
no
true.
choice. You know, he had to do it.
And they had this thing called powwow, this big camp out, and we were. And I took I had a bunch of people going, and Mr. Rick offered to cook.
Okay.
And to be the cook for powwow, and so I was thinking a lot easier, quicker menu than what Mr. Rick has, and everything's
Yeah.
cooked over the fire, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Give
over
them
a
an
wood
example,
flame.
Rick, of that menu you would
Yes.
have for them.
All right. First off, let me go back and lay the groundwork.
Yeah, there we go.
I mean, you know, we just can't hit the main point. You got to build up to it. The whole purpose to me of having the roundups, the campouts, is to teach fieldcraft, cooking, anything
Cleaning.
like this, cleaning, responsibilities. So if you go down there and everybody has hot dogs, you know, what you could do that at home. You know, you can take the hot dog and stick it over your charcoal burner or stick it in your microwave. That's not cooking. You know, it's good for a snack, but that's not cooking. So what I said to Mike, I said, I have a wood cooker on wheels. I will pull that down. I will prep the meals. And we went over the menu and I showed him what I had in mind. And I said, I need 2 boys every meal to cook and 2 boys after the meal to clean up. And to give you an example, and it's all over wood. So if we're cooking breakfast and we have to be done, cleaned up and ready for formation at 7:15, we got to have the fire burning by 5. And we got to have, you know, it takes a good half an hour, 40 minutes for the coals to get right to cook. So we're up bright and early, you know.
I remember
getting-
before the sun going down, I hear snoring in somebody's tent. I'm like, oh no, Rick's already asleep.
Yeah, because I'm preparing
He's
for the
gonna
next
be up,
day. That's
he's
right.
gonna be
yeah.
up banging pots and pans early.
Well, I learned one thing when I was a leader. It's always hard to get people up in the morning, especially the kids. So I would go in and tell them to get up 2 or 3 times, and it was like, ha ha, So I said, okay, if you don't get up, I'm going to dump some ice water on you. Well, everybody thought that was funny until I dumped it on the first person. And it's amazing how word travels. After that, all I'd have to do is put a little ice in a plastic cup and shake it, and you would be surprised how quickly people get up in the morning.
Well,
and Josh, I think you were one of my main.
I could remember.
You
some
could
ice,
vaguely
probably.
remember that, yeah. Okay.
Thomas's mom used to put.
Why you gotta bring my mom into this? What mom's
This
ever
is
do to
the
you?
best. She's
What's
so
she
smart.
ever do to you?
She put a bowl of
Hold
marbles.
on. We gotta lay the groundwork first. We gotta
Okay.
go back.
All
We
right,
can't
all
just
right.
jump right into the main
That's
point.
good.
We
Good.
gotta
Tell the
lay the
story,
groundwork.
Thomas.
And I'm gonna incriminate myself on this because I was a terror growing up. I wouldn't get up. I wouldn't do what I was told. Nothing. So mom used to throw ice in the bed to
This
get
is
me up in the
genius.
morning.
Oh, she's
And
so
you
smart.
just roll over a little bit.
Yeah.
You kind of push the ice away.
Right.
If you
But she would
Yeah.
she would have to wash the sheets. Everything would be wet. It'd be a mess.
Yep. Well, mom got the bright idea. I'm gonna freeze marbles. No matter where you roll in a bed, a marble's gonna follow you, and it ain't gonna melt. It ain't gonna
that's pretty
get
good.
water
The
everywhere.
more you squirm, the worse it gets. She'd throw a bowl of marbles, frozen marbles on.
Aggravating woman.
That is smart, isn't it? I love it.
I have to file that one away.
Yeah.
So anyway, breakfast we'd have some kind of meat, usually sausages. Those little breakfast sausages are fine. One guy can fry them in a pan. We'd have scrambled eggs, and you've got one person that's the fun is watching them crack the eggs without getting a lot of shells in the eggs. And of course, they're going to eat
At
it.
4:30 in the morning with no light. No, I'm
Yeah,
just kidding.
and you got a flashlight, and one is holding the flashlight, the other's cracking eggs, and then we'd usually have pancakes. So that would be kind of a typical breakfast.
Toast.
Yeah, we did toast, but it never worked out quite as good as we would like, because over the fire, it's very easy to burn toast, and you hear a lot. This doesn't look like the toast my mother makes. Well, this is what you got to eat. If you want it, eat it. Now I have one thing that I'm going to throw out here that. We'd make the eggs, the sausage, we'd have pancakes, so we'd have syrup. But somebody, I'm dishing out the eggs, and I see one of our commanders frantically going through everything he can, even going to other campsites trying to find ketchup.
Oh,
Now,
good Lord.
if that isn't a Yankee thing, I razzed him.
Whoa, watch it now.
And he's sitting at the table with us. Yeah.
What?
Ketchup on his eggs. Yeah, I know.
Ketchup's the perfect seasoning for eggs.
I'm gonna
You
move
just
over
mix
some.
It's all
I
mixed
can't be
together.
as close to
It was really embarrassing, but I
can handle you
thought
being
you-
a Seminole fan, but ketchup on your
I like
eggs?
it, Mike. I like ketchup.
Oh, that's funny.
so anyway, lunch would be Friday night when we'd get there. I'd usually do chicken, and I'd put that on the grill and cook it. And I could cook it slow, and I'd have a couple boys that would flip it back and forth. But Friday is setting up, so it was kind of a quick, easy meal. And then whatever chicken we had left, whatever thing we had left over from the night before, we would add to our lunch menu. And then lunch, we'd usually have like cold cuts or something like that, or whatever.
Sometimes
was,
leftover barbecue if we had
leftover barbecue.
from the fall festival or
right.
homecoming
So
or whatever. Yeah.
lunch is kind of a hurried meal because you got activities in the morning, and then you have free time in the afternoon, and all the kids want to get out there and go on the rides and go to
Spend
the
all their
Trader.
money at the Trader Row.
Yeah, the Trader Row and all that stuff. So you need to do a kind of quick, easy meal, and plus you don't want to have the two guys that are staying back spend a lot of time cleaning up. It's just not fair. Nighttime, we would do anything from spaghetti, and meat sauce.
I remember steak.
Steak we did
The night
when the
before the boys
commanders
got
went
there.
down early and we set up and we did cook steak. But
The boys
that
don't know
gets a
about
little
steak.
pricey for 28, 29 people. That gets a little pricey.
I think there was one item you told was on the menu. Was it the barbecued noodles?
Yeah, barbecued noodles, and you turned your nose
I
up
turned
on
my
that?
nose at it. And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Put some ketchup on it. It'd be good.
Well, we usually have before the powwow, we usually have a church event, which is, what was it?
Homecoming, or
We have homecoming or
fall
something.
festival, or
and
whatever.
one of the things we do is we have some really big cookers out there, and we do a whole bunch of Boston butts and make barbecued pork from that. So there's usually a couple of 5-pound bags that are in the freezer that we take down, and I incorporate that into the meals, whether it's sloppy joes or
Oh yeah.
or I came up with
And you always had
Noodles.
dessert. Always
Noodles
had
and
dessert
barbecue
too.
pork and noodles, you know. But
Um,
what I found is this: when you're camping out, it's hot. You're running around. The kids are all doing anything. You're sleeping on a mattress. You don't get enough sleep. You're always hungry and thirsty. Be surprised what you'll eat in the evening when you're really hungry,
Yes.
and enjoy it.
Yes. And then
that dump cake.
yeah,
That was the first time I
dessert-
was introduced
the
to dump
dessert
cake.
on Saturday night was
Yeah.
dump cake. You would make
All right. And what it is, it's very simple. And I learned this. Please don't hold it against me. I'm a great copycat. But I learned that at the Girl Scout thing in Wildwood. When my first wife was a teacher's aide, one of our church members was staying as a caretaker, was staying on the Girl Scout property, and they had a jamboree or something or other. We got invited to it. And we went there, and they had dump cake. And it was really good. It's kind of like a cobbler, but there's nothing. It's very easy to make. So I started doing that on Saturday night. Was we'd make a dump cake, and of course, the boys don't know what it is. So I tell them about we have this big dump truck that comes in and dumps all this stuff. You know, you make this big spiel about it, and you want to get volunteers or who wants to help dump it. You know, and all it is you take
take a lot of butter, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar, and some.
The whole stick of butter.
Yeah, it's great when you're when you're dehydrated from all day, and then that dump cake just really
and that
tops it
sugar.
off.
That sugar really helps you sleep at night
indigestion,
too.
and
I've had dump cake on the oven and everything, but in a Dutch oven in a fire,
Yep.
man,
Yep.
it's
It
a little
just-
burn on one side.
Just a little
it's so
crispy.
good.
It is.
Perfect.
And it's similar to a cobbler, but you basically just put it in the Dutch oven, stick it in the hot coals. It stays in there for, I think I do about 36 minutes, depending on how hot it is, and pull it out, and everybody loves it.
Oh yeah,
You know-
that dump cake has made a big hit at Brother Gator's Thursday night men's class.
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
every time we bring it, them boys get excited.
Yeah.
That's good.
You know, it's things like that are easy, but really stand out. And
Oh, yeah.
I'll have ones ask me 2 powers later, you going to make that dump cake again, Rick? You know, Commander Rick, you going to have that?
A neat aspect about that is in talking about your wood fire cooker on wheels.
Right.
It's got its own, like, I'd say temperaments, but it's got its own neat things about it.
Yeah.
The doors slam, it's metal on metal at 4
o'clock
in the morning.
Rick slams it really
Bam!
good, too.
That thing reverberates throughout the
You have
campsite.
to get up about 2 or 3 times during the night and just put a log on, because you want to have some fire in there,
some coals, yeah.
some coals, so that at 5 o'clock in the morning you have something to work with. You don't want to start from scratch. So I usually get up about twice at night and stoke it, and it's got this big flap on the back of it that you got to open. And let's face it, noise reverberates in the woods at night when everybody's in tents. It
And
just
he
does.
doesn't have to slam it. It's just funner that way.
Well, you know, I always feel this way. If I have to be up, why shouldn't you? Yeah.
But it's funny that our boys ate like kings, and you look around in the other campsites, and it's like you said, hot dogs.
Well, when you have commanders come over
Oh yeah,
and-
with
and-
a plate.
with a plate, you know you're making some points. But yeah, it's, and I see, because you walk around the campsite and you see commanders with gas grills.
Oh my God.
I mean,
Never.
What a
Imagine-
it's a travesty. It's a travesty, you know? At least they could use charcoal, but no, they got to use a gas grill. You know, stay at home. You know, really.
Drop the mic. And so
Can I just say, since I've been down there since Commander Rick retired from powwow, and the quality of the food has
Have we
decreased
done
dramatically.
powwows without him? I don't think we've done powwow. No,
Yeah.
I missed one.
Nick was there.
Yeah.
Your cooker was there.
I went down
Yeah.
with Eli on the Ranger Kids Day
Yeah.
on Saturday,
Yeah.
and it was. I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I just got to say, because I had eaten some of your food in the past.
Well, there's not only the intricacies of your grill, because you've got the lanterns set up, you've got the heat, you've got
He had
the
a light bulb at one
the
time.
light bulb,
Yeah.
and it's
Off
got
a battery.
the stainless steel.
heater.
I was getting that.
Okay.
He's got this
That's the coolest
still
thing
that
I've
he
ever seen.
brings,
Yeah, the
and it's
moonshine
the
still that
moonshine
he uses
still.
for hot water.
Yeah, he uses it for hot water. That all the it's interesting.
Alleged moonshine.
You know,
the audience can't see your air quotes.
yes. As I was reminded one time on a mission trip when we got back into the U.S. and a number of people were taken out and interrogated by the U.S. government. Christians do have pasts, and you can tell the Christians at powwow that have certain pasts because they gravitate to Mr. Rick still.
I like to, during the day when there's a lot of activities, I'll sit in the campsite and just keep an eye on things. And plus, my outdoor grill that we have on the ground, we just put a lid on it, but we keep that going because that feeds the hot water heater.
Yeah.
So it is an active fire, so I always try to stay in the campsite to keep. But I'll see commanders walk by, and they'll look as they walk by, and then they'll stop. And then sometimes they'll leave, and then they'll come back 5 minutes later with another guy, and they'll stand because each campsite is marked off with ribbon. So we have our own little section, but they'll come to the front, and I'll say, "Come on in, Commander. You want to look at it? Yeah. Can you show me what it is?" All it is it's a stainless steel drum. It's about 30 gallons, and I cut it in half. Put legs on it, it lays down, and I put a fire in it. In the side of that, I run a copper coil, and the copper coil goes into the fire, makes a loop, and then goes back to another stainless steel drum that's maybe 40 gallons, and it's standing up on a stand. And the one copper coil goes towards the bottom of it, and the second copper coil is higher. And what happens is the water's in the copper coil. It heats up. When it heats up, it rises. And as it rises, it sucks water from the bottom. And as it's the cold water. And as it rises, it goes back into the tank. And you start that circulation. And you can put your hand in there and you can get burnt. It gets hot.
That's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I never could find where the hooch came out.
It's the same type principle as a still. It's just modified just to heat water.
But you still don't want that first jar of it, right?
No,
That
no,
first
you
jar will
always,
hurt
you
you.
always
You always
drip
dump
that
out the
off.
first
Yeah.
jar.
Matter of fact, some people wait in line for it.
So
Yeah, I remember one story. I don't even know if I should tell this story. Me and another individual.
I wanna hear it.
Me and another individual. Rick was cooking an awesome dinner, and before the camp out, we learned that you could make your homemade fart powder and add it to food, and it would. We thought it'd be so funny if we added it to Rick's beans.
no.
Why would you add it to beans?
You add it to
they're
my
already
food and my
fart powder.
drink?
Hey, we tested it out on Mike first to make sure it's safe. And I remember everybody was praying, and my friend lifted up Rick's beans and he dumped it in there, and then he closed it, and it started bubbling out of it. And we're trying to pat it down while everyone's praying, and all the kids came by and scooped up, beans on their plate. Like, these beans taste funny. And I remember Rick saying, "What's wrong?"
I was there that year.
Rick's like, "What's wrong with my beans? That's an old family recipe."
Josh and some guy unquote R with an R in his name. Put in fart powder.
He told me too. He said, "Josh, should we do this? Because if I had kids here, I'd be mad if I found out somebody did this." And that was before I had kids. And I'm like, man, if somebody did that to my kids, I'd be mad.
How you feel about it now?
I'd be mad if somebody did.
When Josh had his son, I said, "Josh, put your big boy pants on now, because now you're a dad. You're going to have to throw away all those childish things.
He didn't have any big boy pants. I tried giving him a few, but he won't take them.
Hey, this one's next right here.
Hey, that's right. You're getting close.
A couple more months, yeah.
You should give him lessons. Have a couple seminars.
You can have some of my pants, Thomas.
Yeah, I will. Not from him.
Yeah.
What you got, Mike? You want to give me some lessons?
Yeah. and so, and I think what you find is when the kids are assigned the duty of cooking, they really take to it.
They do.
And they do. And they learn, and they get gratification for serving that meal, because then they get to be the servers of the meal as well.
Yeah. And whenever if you're a cook, you're at the end of the line. Everybody else eats, you eat last.
Well, that's because you've been taste testing for 20 minutes.
But that's part of, and I'm full. I can't eat anymore. But I've had ones at 6:15 in the morning stirring eggs, trying to get them to scramble, saying, boy, I never realized my mom did this, or I appreciate what she did. It gives them a different outlook on things, and they start to appreciate some of the things that we take for granted, Mm-hmm. And I get a lot of satisfaction out of seeing through the years the boy that came that didn't want to spend the night, and he was almost crying, and or he was belligerent, and he didn't want to do this and didn't want to do that, and through a period of years you see him starting to grow and mature, and his attitude changing. And now, instead of being the one that's disrupting everything, he's one of the ones that are helping. He's the one that pitches in. He's the one that's showing someone else what to do. And that's, to me, what really makes it special, is you see the product, you see the end result, you see the kids growing.
And people don't know this, but, kids, on a weekend trip, you ask them, what they ate, what they did. They really just remember their last meal they had. And so Mr. Rick would always on the way home, like, hey, let's stop at McDonald's. I'll get the boys a little treat on the way home. And so we'd always stop at McDonald's.
So you're saying when the kids got home, all they tell their parents is we ate McDonald's?
Well, if they did, well, so.
Well, and see, that has a history to it. When I was going as a leader, and Brother Felix went down with us, and to be honest with you, at that time in my life, money was tight, and I had to take a day off, not working, to come down and go to the powwow. So financially there was a certain impact, but Brother Felix would always have us stop at some place and would buy us a snack or a lunch or dessert or something. And I feel that I'm trying to step into that and take that place.
Yeah.
So I give
remember
him the credit.
Yes.
I just remember all the kids getting an ice cream and Enrique coming on the bus with a quarter pounder.
Yeah,
I know. How did you get that?
You always have one, and you got 28 kids, and they want to give you 28 other orders. You go crazy. We go in there and get everybody gets the same thing. It makes life much easier.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, there's always one that was, well, I can't eat that.
Well, Mr. Rick, you saved me a lot of times on powwow, and I didn't have to worry about that aspect. I just had to worry about my helpers.
Right. Well,
we've matured. I think,
would we call that a helper, or would we call it a distraction?
Yeah, right.
What I try to accomplish from being a leader in the powwows, you have so many different areas you have to concentrate. Making sure they're safe, making sure everything's prepared. The meals are a whole area that if I can go down and take care of it, that's one less thing that you have to really worry about. And that's what I try to do, is take that away, take that off your plate, so you're not concerned with it. And I do try to go over the menu with you.
Yes.
So I don't just throw things in.
I think I've only missed butter or ranch or something here and there. But
once in a while, like ketchup, I purposely left that at home.
Did either of you guys, were you there under Rick with Felix, or were you guys?
Yeah, I was. I don't remember a whole lot back then. I just remember with Felix, if he caught you like he would start talking to you, and your friends would run off and play.
Yeah.
And
he would talk a long time.
He would hold you there for a while, and he'd just keep. And he was interesting, but I'm like, I gotta go, but I don't want to leave. I do remember that.
'Cause I know early on they used to, Powwow would provide food, and they still do, but I think we generally kind of use their menu.
Half-cold
Yeah.
hot pocket.
And I was there through that whole process. The first powwow I went to was in a cow pasture. Not a tree or a bush in sight, and you're talking 1,000 of us out in the hot sun for 3 days.
Yes.
It wasn't, I mean, it was wonderful, but it wasn't, you know. So they bought the property, but it took us a couple years to get on the property. Then the second year after we had the property, I think it was Ed White was the one at the time, I believe, I'm not positive, that was kind of running it. And we were still having the powwow off property. And a bunch of us leaders got together and said, you know, we want to go to the property, you know, and everything isn't perfect, but, you know, we would really like to use it. So we started using it, and what they did in the beginning, and I think it was as much financial, was they had to pay for these, I think it's 93 acres. So, you know, I'm sure it was a pretty good price tag, but they had to make payments. So one of the things they did to help that was they provided the meals. But from an outpost point of view, and we were, let's just say we weren't the richest outpost out there. It was a stretch because we were paying quite a bit for the food package that went along with everything else. And because there were so many of us down there, you had to eat in schedule, and the boys would wait, you know, a half an hour, 40 minutes in line. Then you'd have to carry your food back to the campsite, and you'd have to eat it quick and then get ready to do the next thing. So a bunch of us presented to them that we would like to be able to cook our own meals, because to me that's a big part of camping out, is being able to cook. Going down there and have them give you prepackaged food and stuff, it just, you know, it wasn't the whole thing that I wanted to see. So there was a number of us that actually petitioned for it, and first they gave us the option when the outpost signed up, you could do it with food or without, and we could feed much better for much cheaper than what we were having to pay.
Yes.
How many boys did they have at that time?
I'm guessing we were probably close to 1,000 when I first started going.
Imagine cooking for 1,000 boys.
Yeah, well, they had the frontiersmen and the initiation that they did.
Yeah.
Whoever was being initiated that season automatically helped with the preparation and everything, and they had a certain amount of catering that brought stuff in. And then they had to heat it up or cook it or whatever it was.
Those frontiersmen guys haven't bathed in a while. They're in animal skins.
Yeah, I mean they were wild, you know.
So when we got to powwow, I remember we would try to invent a scary story to tell the kids. Remember?
I remember.
And I needed some credibility because they didn't believe me. I don't know why. But I told Rick, I said, hey, if the kids ask you about Junkyard Joe, just make something
I remember
up.
that, yeah.
And Rick, man, he made that story really stick. You want to talk about Junkyard Joe? Or?
I remember it wasn't a flip phone I had, but I took a picture of the chain on the trail, you know, the chain, the breakaway chains.
Right.
I took a picture of the section of the chain on my little phone that was just one model above the flip. And showed him the picture of that chain. See, there's a chain.
Well, the story was that the Assemblies of God bought it from an old junkyard.
Right.
And so the story went that there was some character living in that junkyard and still
roaming
there.
around. Yeah.
Yeah, the kids didn't believe me, but when
they still talk about
Commander Rick mentioned it, they're like, "Oh, it is real. He is real."
Well, I'll tell you one story that is true. And I'm just going to say Jonathan, all right? When he was young, and he did, I think it was one of his first campouts, and we had it behind my house in the woods, and it was before Nick's trailer was there. So it was pretty wooded. It was a little open hollow. So we had the Pioneers, who was the youngest group in our thing. That was their first camp out. We had it there. And, we were setting tents up and everything. And I was trying to get the start of an open fire. And I had put everything piled up teepee style. And Jonathan was coming over. So just before Jonathan got there, I had some paper in there. And I took a match and stuck it up in the paper. And Jonathan came over. And as Jonathan came over, I picked up 2 sticks. And I started rubbing them sticks together as fast as I could. And I was sticking the sticks right up under the paper. And all of a sudden it lit up. And Jonathan looked at me. For years, I mean years, he thought I started that fire with those 2 sticks. And I think he was down in Webster at the feed store, and I finally told him the true story.
He finally broke it.
I remember the first year I took on Rangers, I agreed to have Roundup here on the church grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And Roundup is like the first weekend of November. And we had all these churches here, and we had a freeze.
Yep, I remember that.
And it didn't come till,
It set in about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night, boy, and just boom.
Did it freeze, really?
Yes, it
Frost
froze.
everywhere.
No.
Yes.
And Enrique again. He brought a sheet to cover up in.
Yes.
Well,
Oh, my God.
when I was a leader, I always threw at least 2 or 3 sleeping bags and some blankets in back of my truck, because invariably there would be 2 or 3 boys that just came down with nothing. And the pastor's son was one of them. Yeah. Casey would always come down with just about nothing,
We had, luckily that night for me, we had a boy that used to eat nonstop. We'd have to pull food away from him. And he got a hold of extra chicken. And he ate and ate. And he got up in the middle of the night sick. And I took him in the gym, and he was throwing up. And I felt we had, at the gym, they had those fast food table, the bench.
I remember
the table
those.
with the seat that like you'd see the fast food place. I fell asleep in there in the heat. He fell asleep on the toilet. It was great. So I made out.
You were warm, Ritz was shivering.
Anyways, well, Mr. Rick, really appreciate you. You've
it
out.
has been a blessing to watch this whole church grow. From when I came here, there was maybe 25 families, and to see what it's grown into now. And when I was before I got on the board, the school system put this property up for sale. And we had $87 in our building fund. That was it. And we put a bid in. And nobody else bid, and we got it. And it was like, wow, what do we do now? But it has been just a blessing. God has been with us every step of the way. And it's just...
what I heard what you guys did is you had a jar for youth volleyball night. If anybody said a certain word, they had to put $1 in.
Yeah?
No, just kidding.
There was a bad word jar.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line. I don't remember where it was, but I do remember that.
Josh probably has it at his house.
I think it was when they were
Josh needs one.
practicing baseball. I think that's what it was.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I thank you very much, and God bless America.
All right, y'all, we just want to thank you for listening to our podcast today. The Whatsoever Things podcast is just a group of folks sitting around talking about their faith, and it does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of the leadership of Oxford Assembly of God. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You can subscribe in whatever your favorite podcast application is. And if you'd like to find out more information about our church, you can visit our website at www.oxfordag.org. That's oxfordag.org. We'll see you next time.